and before I went to that, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss all the opening dialogue of JT.
Yeah, that's even half of it.
Good deal. MJ, how was your week, brother?
Oh, man, excellent week. Just chill, relax, got some good workouts in. I'm back on the rowing machine, up to an hour. Every time I watch a TV show, I got to row, so it's getting back.
You say every time you watch a TV show, you row?
TV show, not sports. I got to concentrate on football.
So you don't want to talk about?
No, let's move on. We don't want to talk about sports.
Oh no, because you said football, so I didn't know if you wanted to have a conversation about
No,
football.
we don't
Did you
want
want to talk about football tonight?
No, we don't want to talk about
You don't talk football tonight?
We don't want to talk about football tonight. Oh, did they lose?
Did they lose?
They got drugged. Like a $2 hole on Stewart Avenue.
God, dog, not on Stewart.
Yeah, Eagles.
So are you still confident in them?
Honestly, they're gonna beat any team that they can out talent. But when they come into with the Cowboys, the 49ers, the same thing happened. You had just the same level of talent, or maybe a little bit less, or a little bit more, depending on how you want to look at it. They can't beat those teams. But any other team, they can just put so much talent on the field, they're gonna beat you. Because they haven't been clicking all season on offense. You know, Jalen Hurts' knees hurt, so he doesn't have that same cutting explosiveness. They've got too much talent to not be doing more though.
No, MJ, I just must say, you weren't saying that 2 weeks ago about this talent level thing.
Let's move on, man. We got a whole lot of things to do, and you came late, so let's just move on to the topics.
Okay. We did start late tonight, man, and I'm sure that ran our folks over here crazy, but I apologize for one of the very rare times it was on me.
It's normally on JT or him. So.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. But as our producer always likes us to do, is do anything bad at the beginning so that we don't end that way. So I'm going to start off with why I'm late, right? First of all, my weekend was pretty decent. I didn't have a bad weekend. Because usually if it's bad, it's something I can recall. There's nothing really I can recall this weekend. But everything went pretty smooth. We had a good weekend up here at the club. Pretty decent anyway. We had a nice party next door at the Avenue, which was kind of dope. So overall, it was pretty decent. No complaints. Tonight, however, or today, my fraternity brother, man, and I ain't gonna really say no names at this point. The people who know. But I got a call this afternoon, man, that his 30-year-old daughter was killed in a car crash. I guess around this time yesterday evening. And so I'm kind of bummed out about it. You know, this is, for those who know my story, my son, I remember them being at a birthday party together. You know what I mean? When they were both, kids or whatever. And now she's 30 years old. My son was 1 year older than her. So anyway, I'm going to try to get this energy back up. But right now, I'm just leaving this house. I've been in this house for most of the evening, just, with him and the wife, man, just kind of, sharing. And because those of us who unfortunately have been through this, I think, in God's mysteries of life, he does things to certain people so that they can have a story to share for other people. You know what I mean? And since my tragedy happened, I've been in a position where I've been able to help comfort as much as possible to people, because the people that I've known that have gone through this type of thing, the first question they ask is, man, how did you deal with it? You know what I mean? They immediately ask that question. And
there's nothing I can say because I don't know it
and
I want to know it.
Yeah. And anybody who hadn't been through it is really, nothing. It's not a lot you should say. I tell people all the time, but sometimes just being there. Now, this particular brother, when I lost my son, This guy showed up at my house, bruh, every single day of the week for about 2-3 weeks afterwards. And that spoke volumes afterwards, because people who know, people are going to be at your house every day up until the funeral. After the funeral, everybody goes their separate ways. You know what I mean? But for him to still show up to my house after that, when I say, and him and I, we go back and forth with a whole bunch of other stuff in life. You know what I mean? But I have always felt, no matter what our relationship is, that would always be something that will keep us bonded forever, because I can remember, I can remember that. You know what I mean? Just like I told him, I can still remember some people that was my house that day. I can remember the people I know that showed. Like I told him, I said, you're going to remember, unfortunately, you're going to remember this day for the rest of your life. Everything that occurred this day, as he was telling the story about how he found out all the things, and I was just listening to him repeat it over and over again. And I was like, man, I said, bro, that's something that, because my son passed away in 1999, and I still remember everything that happened that day. Everything. So, anyway, how much time we got? Can we go to break? You got anything else?
No, I got nothing. We'll go to break. We'll go back.
All right, so since we're starting late, we're going to go to an early break, and then we'll jump right into these topics. Got some fascinating topics today. We're going to talk about some cop stuff, so that, MJ can feel under the gun. You know what I mean? Because I think it's been almost 2 weeks since people have been cutting at you, MJ. So it's about time for you to feel sliced and diced again, right? So we're going to talk about some of these cop issues, and then we're going to get to one other topic. But we'll be right back. Classic Conversation with JT and Lo.
And that's a cop.
Hey, we're back. Classic Conversation with JT and Lo.
And that's a cop.
Hey, man. Again, like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Amazon, Spotify, and TikTok now, huh? And TikTok. So we tickety-tockety folks too, y'all. Check that out. So, like, share, and subscribe, man. Keep them. Let's help get them numbers up, man. If y'all can go out there and give Shannon Sharp and them joker 300,000 in one day, we can get 40, 50 y'all. I don't think that's asking too much.
Yeah. But I'm watching that show too. I like the after hours.
Nightcap is hilarious. Yeah, Nightcap is hilarious. So listen, we're gonna jump into some interesting topics that have occurred here recently, and we want to ask the cops' views on some of these things, because they're questionable, I think, and that's saying it lightly. So we have the first one. Let's talk about is 60-year-old gentleman gets pulled over. Officer gives him a ticket. The gentleman is questioning why he's receiving a ticket. The officer is telling him why he's getting a ticket and tells him to sign it. The gentleman says, I'm not signing this ticket. So they go back and forth, and then the officer says, either sign the ticket or go to jail. And really, man, let's start right there, MJ. Either sign the ticket or go to jail in the city of Atlanta. Speak on it, sir.
Well, look, here's the bottom. At the bottom says jail, arrest, or copy. It's one of those things. I mean, I'm not really going to speak on this case because I know parties involved in it when the supervisors. It's one of those situations where things escalated that probably shouldn't. Well, I can't say that. I'm not, because it's an open case. I don't want to cloud anybody, but it's one of those situations where just because you can doesn't mean you do.
Okay.
And but with that being said, we're gonna just talk about. We won't really talk about the case. We'll talk about the force used.
Okay.
And he was tased. And anytime you have somebody that's older and any other conditions, if there was narcotics involved on the call, there was other things involved, so that was one of the ones that's kind of hard to speak on, and I know people involved, so I'm gonna step away from that one. I'll go on to the next one on that one.
Well, okay. We don't talk about that particular case, but let's talk about the situation of if a person doesn't want to sign a ticket, not this person, MJ. Mm-hmm. If any person doesn't want to sign the traffic ticket, is the option in the city of Atlanta to take that person to jail? Or what other options does a police officer have if a person doesn't want to sign a ticket?
You can just, you can copy the person, just give them a ticket.
And write, what would you write?
But I'm not a traffic type guy. I've never been a traffic type guy. So.
But you were a supervisor in a zone, sir.
I frown upon it. I'll just be honest with you. I frown upon it. Unless there's got to be insinuating circumstances. Typically, you'd raise a supervisor, and I think ultimately he wasn't fired for any of his actions that day. I'm talking more about the case than I should. He was fired for failure to notify a supervisor. And that just lets you know, I don't want to get into the logistics of it, but it's more that happened on that call than they're letting out. But I will say this, the city of Atlanta let him go for failure to notify a supervisor.
Of what?
Of an arrest.
Okay.
That you're going to make a physical on a traffic stop. And in that case, he's probably going to end up getting his job back, almost 100%. But it's like that's also one of the things, like I said, as a police officer, you have that area where egos can get into it. And I'm not saying that's what happened in that one, but typically you have there's a lot of people, especially in the city of Atlanta, there's a lot of people that do need to go to jail. I'm not going to speak on this case, but the only time I'm not, like I said, I'm not a traffic person, but I typically like to see people go to jail that need to be there. And basically, traffic offense, tow his car, copy him, let him go,
Let's just speak louder into the mic, Cup. So I guess my question then is, again, we don't have to talk about this particular case, but just in general, if I hear you clearly, an officer does not have to make a physical arrest if a person doesn't want to sign the ticket. That's an option.
You can just write refused on it.
Just write refused on it.
Judges typically will act accordingly when the fines come out on that.
Right. So from a supervisory standpoint, now, because he was fired, I'm assuming because his death was ruled a homicide. That's not why he was fired?
No, he was fired because failure to, what they actually got him for was failure to notify a supervisor.
All right. Do you think that it should have been ruled a homicide, or can you not respond to that?
I can't talk on that because it's open, but it's just like that situation. Remember when they had that, when it also locked that lady and that guy up in the park, the woman up in the park? Mm-hmm. It's one of those situations where you can't talk on it. It's sad because it doesn't look, it's not quite what everybody thinks it is. And I think what happens in Atlanta especially is there's a knee-jerk action, and he also typically suffers and his dread to the coals, and then when the whole truth comes out, a year from now, nobody wants to talk about it. But it's an unfortunate situation, but I'll just leave it at that. The officer wasn't fired for any of his actions that day other than to fail to notify a supervisor.
That was the written reason for the termination?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
No. See, I can't get into that part of it, but you got to realize, think about it. If you would have did something wrong, Atlanta going to put that paper on you.
Right.
They're going to put that paper on you. And for them to go, okay, they wanted something, got to have somebody's head, okay, fire them for failure. It's not a fireable. It's a fireable offense if you chief and American fire whoever they want, but watch how quick he gets his job back.
So JT asked the question, what's up, JT? Chimed in, he said, should they be tased? If someone refuses not to sign a ticket, taking the lights is the option for the officer.
No, what happens with it when a taser, I'm not even going to talk about that incident, but say if I pull you over.
That's a general question, though.
If I pull you over and okay, for whatever reason, now I know it's going to be a 23, which is an arrest. And I'm going to physically arrest you. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to say, sir, go ahead and step out the car for me. And if you refuse, I'm going to try verbally tell you, sir, you've been placed under arrest. You please exit the car. At that point, if you don't exit the car, I'm going to try a light come along. Grab you by the wrist, return the wrist, whatever. At that point, if you don't, I'm more of a hands-on type of guy. A lot of the newer officers aren't, and they're quick to go to a taser. But at that point, they would be able to tase you and be able to justify it because a lesser degree of force is used. And people don't realize on the taser, on the force continuum, comes ahead of the aspartame.
Right.
So they could tase you. And at that point, it'd be perfectly justified. They cuff you because they were trying to affect the rest of your level of resistance. The Supreme Court has decided that an officer can go one level above that level of force you use in resistance.
Good segue. So now, what are the reasons to execute a taser? What should be the primary reason that an officer uses a taser?
Primary reason is when verbal, your mere presence, verbal didn't work. Now you try come-alongs. It could be because the person's big, the person's combative, maybe they have a weapon, maybe for whatever reason you don't feel confident in just if you're being able to manhandle them, or it may be somebody that...
So you say you don't feel comfortable, so that means you don't have to make an attempt first?
Yeah, you should always make an attempt. Yeah.
Okay.
Make an attempt, unless you can articulate why it wouldn't be wise to you. Like if you're dealing with somebody that's 6'4", 230, you try to come along and he's fighting, and you might not want to grab hold of that grizzly bear. But you tase a person, then you cuff him. It happens. It shouldn't happen that much, but tasers, a lot of people now are using almost like Linus in the security blanket. And a lot of officers are taking tasers to gunfights. I can remember a couple years back on Boulevard, there's an officer that was affecting a drug arrest, and the supervisor was on the scene, and he pulled his taser to tell the guy, stop. And the guy pulled a gun, and the sergeant actually shot the perpetrator. So, you know, a lot of these officers are, I think it's getting a false sense of security because a lot of people don't realize tasers fail to work if it like, the prongs that we use aren't the longer ones, and it gets hung up in jackets a lot. And you need both taser contacts meet so they both have to attach for a taser to work. So it's not foolproof that a taser is going to work.
Okay. So you may not be able to respond or feel comfortable, whatever the case may be. But let me just say how I saw it, right? I saw this older gentleman, and I won't say old man because, you know, when you get in the 50s, you got to stop saying people old because you be forgetting how old you really are.
Yeah.
How people view you. But anyway, 60 years old, 60, whatever he was, 60-something years old man who was obviously upset about getting a ticket, right? And he just said, you know, he was really refusing to sign a ticket because he didn't feel like he was justified to get a ticket. He tried to, you know, he was trying to explain himself to the officer. To me, I immediately felt like he should have identified that this guy wasn't a threat. He was just simply upset. You know what I mean? He was simply upset. He didn't understand. He couldn't comprehend what he had done wrong. And I believe this officer could have easily have took his demeanor down by, you know, better explaining to this guy, you know, hey, man, let me sit down. Let's just talk about, you know what I mean? I think he could have easily have redirected the energy, you know what I mean? But he stayed, either you're going to do this or go to jail, you know what I mean? So how does that help this guy? And the guy didn't come at him. The guy wasn't rude. The guy never did any of that stuff. And then I got a major concern at the point of him tasing him over this because the guy, look at the entire video, the guy never appeared to be a threat. Not even one time. He never appeared to be a threat. He was kind of resistant at the point you started grabbing him, which the natural person, if you snatch somebody, the natural reaction is to, you know, pull back. But then I didn't see a threat. And then why wouldn't you call for backup at the point? You know, there's just so many things I felt like this guy did wrong, right? And then in this day and age, if a person says, I can't breathe, I don't care whether you think he's faking or not. But especially somebody of certain age groups, if a person starts saying, hey, man, I can't breathe, why are people still not pulling back some, especially if you don't, there was no threat. There was at no point that this guy was threatening him. And then the man said, I can't breathe, and you still tasing him? I mean, I think homicide was the just charge on it because I feel like this officer did everything wrong. There was nothing I saw that he did correctly. Nothing. Just be honest. I didn't see any of it being correct.
And to add to that, and a lot of times I think what happens, and police officers are human, but they ask for the job. So it's a double-edged sword. You're human, but you ask for the job. And I think a lot of times officers can bring what happened to them that day to work, or it might just be an officer's general demeanor or a person's demeanor. I saw different things in that video, the body cam, and there's also things I'm privy to. So that's why I don't really want to make comments. But there's a lot more to that incident than what the news is putting out there and things that happen. Not saying it's pretty, but the use of force, I said a lot of times on the show, there's no time that the use of force is going to be attractive. I don't care what it is. And I think one thing that's happening with the Taser, there is an over-reliance on the deployment of it, but it's also taught through the academies because it's a lesser degree because anytime you police with me, when you pull out that ass, even with us, we'd rather go hands-on with you and manhandle you than pull out that ass because steel on bone is never pretty.
Sure.
Particularly the day after. And so you try at all costs to avoid that ass baton, putting the ass to the shin or whatever. So I think it's quick. Tasers are pulled because they know at that point, a lot of times you can spark it, and a lot of times people will utterly just, okay, cool, I won't get tased. Everybody knows what a taser is now. You're not going to run into too many people that don't. And a lot of times they kind of calm down. And so, like I said, you can't put yourself in an officer's position. I think through the case, the facts are going to come out. Is it going to be pretty? No. Is it a homicide? I can tell you 100% that's not a homicide case. Now, with the current Fulton County DA, she's liable to pick it up. But, she's taken a few L's lately, or is about to take one. I can't say taking L's, but she's,
You like that, didn't you? Teresa, I didn't quite understand what you're asking me. You said, so it's not just about signing a ticket. You said it's a great deal of other things that may go into effect as another charges. But I'm assuming it might have been something said earlier, so I'm trying to relate to the question so we can make sure we get it answered. Real quick, these next few minutes, man, did you hear about the Glenn Foster case? The former NFL player that got tased while he was strapped down?
Yeah, in 2021.
Okay.
And if you look at it, it says allegedly tased when he was strapped down. That case has a lot of particulars that didn't happen. I think the thing that I see, if you're just going by what you're reading and what you're hearing, because the video hasn't been released, if there's any in the jail, as soon as the person, when they realized that he was having maybe a psychotic issue, at that point, they should have rendered aid or gotten him help. I think that's the focus of it. I think the other stuff, from the way I read it and looking at what's available, it happened in 2021. This is 2023. There's a lot of cases in Georgia now and in the Southeast of jails, bad treatment of prisoners. Now, none of that's substantiated. It's like what lawyers do, just like an OJ case, they're going to throw shit up and hope it sticks to the wall. And I think in that case, from what just reading it, if it went down the way it actually did, they say it did, then it's a situation where I see more of the failure to render aid, failure to get him medical assistance, more so than tased him when he was, strapped down, because there's no evidence of that. The coroner's report didn't have anything about burns, and if a person is naked and tased, even when you're not, you're going to get a lot. Even on a dark-skinned person like myself, you're going to get a burn mark where the taser makes contact with the skin. You know.
So let me go to this last one real quick. I think we got 2 minutes. Is that about right? About 2 minutes? What about the Alabama officer that tased the person while he was handcuffed on the back of the car, on the front of the car?
Well, I'll just tell you this. If I could change places with that brother right now, I would. He's going no, it's
But when you see stuff like that, what goes through your mind?
When I see it, it's the one thing I think about is our president sending over $100 billion on a foreign war that could have been spent on actually having storage place for body cams, storage place, making it mandatory for the tasers that officers use to have a camera. That officer's taser didn't have a camera on it. When you see Atlanta police officers' tasers, that big black thing on the bottom of a yellow taser is actually the camera. You see departments using these dark-colored tasers. It's because when I first saw her doing it, I thought she had a gun to her until I looked at her a second time. I thought it was a service weapon. Whoa, the guy's covered. Why she got a gun in his back? And it turned out to be the taser. I think all tasers mandatory should be yellow, and everybody should mandatorily have to carry the camera on it. The problem is you have to retain those the film from a body cam and also from the taser. So it becomes a storage issue. Smaller departments and smaller cities cannot afford to pay taser to store that. So a lot of people don't get to want the camera on the bottom. I think in the long term, it'll serve the public better and have more of a transparency if it becomes mandatory and the federal government maybe picks up the tab for storing body cams and storing tasers. Make it a natural depository so anywhere you go, those tasers and everything goes with you. We talked about that before. So
Taser just came out during the Biden administration?
Huh?
Taser just came out during the Biden.
Taser's been out for a while. I'm just talking about the current president.
Okay. The way you said it, I thought maybe Taser just came out within the last 4 years. So they've been out then, right?
Anyway.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Cotton, you really need to stop with that, but your Republicans are the ones who stopped the funding for these tasers and everything else. You come in here and show support and falsehood and stop it. Yeah. You know,
my Republicans.
Taser just came out during the Biden administration. We just learned something new today. Hey, man, we'll be right back. Classic Conversation with JT and Lowe. And ask a cop. Can we do that?
And ask a cop.